I never noticed your plate before.
I'll just make me show you what you need about the house. Okay. No chance of parole. We've seen
Oh God, it is a crime to cover up this pompadour. Oh man.
You know anybody in this joint? What is this? Diners, drive-ins, and dives? I thought I was in Made Men Barbershop.
I don't know how I feel about being in a barbershop with this man after watching the Irishman movie. I want to get out of here. Let's head to your place to do the interview.
Well, I got cousin Joe here. He's got a license to kill. So don't try anything funny.
Hannibal TV. It is the king of Connecticut, and I want to say we're going to be doing something a little bit different today than your normal viewing. Ironically, what started out as a secret society on the island where my own grandparents and great-grandparents immigrated from has become an integral part of American society. Everything from television shows, Wise Guy, The Sopranos, to the most iconic American movies, Godfather, Goodfellas, to American history, the Kennedy assassination. No aspect of American popular culture is complete without a discussion of the life. And I am here with the man who has led that life, the author of the book, The Life. And his manager and gorgeous wife, Kelly, who we'll talk to later, will grab the book to show us. Mr. Larry Mazza.
Well, that was an incredible opening.
Thank you.
I don't even know where to go from that. I'm humbled. I'm honored that you, Matthew, and Hannibal invited me on. It's the first time I get to introduce my manager. She's been managing me since she met me. Even though it's really starting to blow up now, and she's getting a lot of clients of her own. We'll talk about that. But yeah, let me just show you the book. There it is. As Matthew said, The Life.
Check it out.
Well, we'll tell you where to get it eventually.
We're going to give you a little appetizer, a little teaser about some of the stories.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Salute.
Yeah.
Cheers.
There's yours.
Salute. So, Larry, we need to introduce you to this audience. This is a combat sports audience.
Right.
And I want to start out just by asking you a little bit about your upbringing, your childhood.
Well, as a youth, I was with a very normal family. My dad was a fireman. My mom worked in a bank. I went to Catholic school. I was in all sports. About 12 years old, my father put me in a karate class with him. Shortly after, maybe a year or so later, I went to another karate school. It was more of a martial arts academy run by Louis Neglia, who's a four-time champ. I spent several years with him. When I turned 18 and got my license, it was still a little too demanding for me. I wanted my freedom, so I sort of went on my own and joined the boxing club on Avenue. There was an old wise guy named Angelo Defendis. He passed away now. He taught the kids boxing, and I stood there for a couple of years. So from 12 to 20, I was involved in kickboxing, boxing. Then I met guys down here in Florida, Donnie Hare, may rest in peace, Don the Dragon Wilson, and I started getting introduced to the MMA part of it. I never did that. It was always waist up, traditional kickboxing. So yeah, I've been doing. I'm 60 now. I stopped probably 8 years ago, actually sparring and fighting, and I couldn't lead my students to the level I wanted to lead them to anymore. So I had to pass it on to younger guys. It's a young man's sport, as you know.
Absolutely. You're in incredible shape, too.
Well, thank you.
Great shape.
Thank you.
And you actually have a gym that we're going to go to later. But you talked about when you were around 18.
Yeah.
And you were attending John Jay.
Yeah, I was in John Jay College, criminal justice. with my friends, we were going like to the Hamptons for weekends and coming down here for spring break and other weeks. And that's where I like to go back to the karate. That was in academy. I couldn't miss classes. But now I had to make a decision. I made a little bit of a dumb decision, and I decided to, move on a little bit. But yeah, I was working at the same time in a supermarket, and I was delivering groceries to houses and stocking shelves. And something happened along the way that changed my life.
Yeah, and you met a woman, a beautiful older woman.
Yes, yeah. And it's funny, when we say that, when I was 18 and she was 31, 32, I remember even my friends saying, she's an old lady. Now, I mean, for a 32-year-old, right? So it's funny, it's all relative. But yeah, at the time, she was much older, and she certainly taught me the ropes. There were true feelings. We were together almost 10 years. But unfortunately, she was one of the Grim Reaper's wives. That was a heavyweight gangster in New York named Greg Scarpa, who pretty much everybody knows now. And what was unique is not even bizarre. I don't even know the word, but he took a liking to me, brought me closer to him, ultimately allowed this to go on.
Yeah. Can you talk about that? Like, let's talk about when he found out. Because here you've got the Grim Reaper, Greg Scarpa. Yeah. When he found out, what did you think?
Well, here's the thing. That's a little bit of a mystery because early on, he didn't know. I know for a fact he didn't know. We were having our liaisons. He was away a lot. She told me travels, whatever. After about a year, we were getting a little crazy. We were taking chances, and I started knowing a little bit more about him, this mysterious guy. So she wanted me to meet him. So then when I met him, I knew this guy was a gangster.
Yeah.
I said, he's no doctor. He's no traveling salesman. And I started getting paranoid. So for about another 6 months or so, we were doing this and it was getting dangerous. And I knew now I was doing the wrong thing. I mean, I knew I could be killed for this. So he didn't catch us in the act or anything. Yeah. So I don't know exactly when they discussed it. And again, he was 20 years older than her.
Oh yeah.
He had 3 other wives.
Yeah.
2 that I knew of. I just found out about another one. So he had 2 other families.
You were keeping her happy.
That or making his life easier. Yeah. There's a lot of, I don't really know, but somewhere along the way she told him, and eventually he brought it up to me and had, confronted me, so to speak, but it wasn't a confrontation. He brought it up, he eased into it, and the way he did it, he was very charismatic, man. He knew, and I just remember saying I would never, ever admit it, but when he said it to me, I said, Greg, you're far from an idiot, and I respect you, and really only an idiot wouldn't see what was going on. We're together all the time. So he laughed, and from there on, we had an arrangement and a friendship that flourished and grew and grew and grew. I was told I was like a son to him. But, with all that, ultimately at the end, I'm fast forwarding. Turns out he was working for the government for 30 years. Yeah. So, there's a lot of in between if we want to go through the whole book. But, we want people to buy the book. We're not, and there's so many amazing stories. Yeah. But a couple kind of takeaways from what you said there. Do you see some parallels maybe between Greg Scarpa and between the famous Irish mobster there in Boston? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They both had a government official. One, mine was an FBI agent. He beat his case, so it's alleged. But whatever it is, the judge on that case made it clear that he wasn't convinced he was innocent. Anyway, so he had an agent, an FBI agent. And the unfortunate thing is, it got exposed pretty much by me early on. And this agent was allowed to get on the stand and lie. Yeah. So it goes further. How much further, who knows?
Unbelievable.
But it's, and Whitey Bulger's brother was a politician.
Yeah.
So how can, and you can't tell me this guy went on the lam, Whitey, 15 or 20 years, and they couldn't catch him. they catch everybody.
Exactly.
America's Most Wanted, you name it. The people with cameras looking for people nowadays. So I don't think they wanted to catch Whitey. And I'm going to say one last thing. I didn't mean to interrupt. I believe there's a lot more of that going on. A lot more. There's guys that even are still out there in the streets of Brooklyn that know the way to survive.
Yeah.
We were naive.
Yeah. And in Greg Scarpa's case, I mean, he was able to do what he wanted to do. And look the other way, which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
and that's why he never rose to a level. I mean, that man could have been boss, could have been anything you wanted. But every time he was offered a promotion, and I remember him telling me, he said, I'm happy right where I am. And he would tell the boss, thank you very much. I'm happy where I am. Because as a soldier, he's not giving orders. Okay? So if an order is given down to him and he lets them know about it, he's doing his job for both sides, you know. And then I found out later on, the family knew about it. The boss and his son knew. And now I'm like, why would they allow it? But earning, the man was a monster earner. Plus, they had him do a lot of hits that were bad. That could have backfired, where it would be a lot of heat. But if he did it, there'd be no heat. So they were a big using, backstabbing life. So, you know, I learned the hard way.
Yeah, and in that case, I mean, there's some rules that were broken, right? Like, even though you consider it in normal people private, like who's true and who's wife, that was supposed to be a rule.
Well,
too,
that's
right?
one rule. Then, you know, as we went along, Greg Jr., who I'm still friends with, and he's nothing like his father, did 33 years like a champ, even helped with some terrorist stuff. And they never gave him play because
Mississippi Burning.
No, that was way back. That was way back. The World Trade Center bombing, the Oklahoma bombing. He, you know, had some information, and because they hated the father now so much, they locked him up. They didn't give him any play. But anyway, he's totally different. I'm tight with him.
Yeah.
And he just got out. But he, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You were talking about, I wanted you were discussing, like, helping the government. And I just mentioned the Mississippi Burning. Because I know Greg Scarpa.
He was in, that's where he got his badge from them. The Mississippi Burning story is exactly when he got in with Hoover.
And people know that movie. So, I mean, that's something that you might want to tell people, because most of these viewers probably aren't familiar with
if the movie's Mississippi Burning, Gene Hackman's in it, among others, William Dafoe. And it's based on a true story about civil rights activists, along with some black guys that disappeared down in Mississippi, you know, in the 60s. And it was just when the movement was happening for equality and all of that good stuff. And they couldn't find the bodies. The FBI, nobody would give it up. Ultimately, they hired Greg Scarpa, put him down there, and I was told he did unspeakable things to them. So the first level, he got through them, then eventually they led him to the guy that knew. And the story, again, it's all in Mississippi Burning, but they don't let you know that they hired a hitman, and they sort of make you wonder if it was the FBI. They don't let you know who it was. But it was great. It's documented. You can read it in the Times. You can research it. It's all out there now.
So kind of to finish up with Greg Scarpa, he had contracted a horrible disease. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, he did. What happened, he was taking aspirin, Anacin, 3 to 6 a day, without milk, without water. He would just pop them. And he did that because he didn't want to get a headache that night.
Yeah.
You know, especially if we were going to go out with a few drinks or he had a rough day. And he had me popping them with him. Not all 6. I would take 2 or 3. And for years and years of doing this, they were digging holes in his stomach. They all hit at once. So he had these lesions bleeding in his stomach. So he started seeing it in his system. He goes to the hospital, and it just started gushing. I mean, it got really bad. He had to have a few emergency operations. So to cut to the chase, he needs a blood transfusion. He insists on it being one of his men. Somebody has to match, he feels. The hospital wanted to give him their blood because it's been scanned already, or whatever the word is.
Tested.
Yeah. So they know there will be no virus in there. But he insisted on one of his own men. So about 30 of us go. as luck has it, or as the plan from above had it, there was one match, Paulie. Paulie was a weightlifter. She had steroids or the
Needles.
okay, back in the day. You know, everybody thought it was a gay disease, but you know, you could transfer it that way too.
Yeah.
And this Paulie had more girls than Brett Pitt. And the guy was in good shape, had lots of money, you know. So it wasn't that. So long story short, he's the one that matches, and he's got HIV. So ultimately, yeah, Greg got that. He deteriorated, but because of the money he had, he was doing a lot of experimental drugs like magic drugs.
Yeah.
So he was able to stay alive.
Stay longer. Yeah.
But without the stomach and the way he had to eat, they had to take out his whole stomach. So they had to put a bag in there. So other things happened, and then dementia hit in. At the end, he was really become. That's when we changed him from the Grim Reaper to Hannibal. We called him Hannibal.
Hannibal from Hannibal. Yeah. You know, it's funny because you talk about that, and I don't want to. There's so many great stories in the book, and you were involved in really the last big mob war, you know, of the 20th century. And there's one story that kind of relates to Greg's mind going, to the dementia, and that's the story of the hit on Nicky Black, who was very big.
Yeah, but you know what's funny about that one? Out of all the damage we did during the war, it was kill or be killed. We were fighting each other. Again, that doesn't make it right in the whole world, but in our circle, that was what it was. But Nicky Black was a heavyweight under Vicarina. He grew under. He would have never grown under Junior Persico because there was a edict put in when he got made. He could never rise above soldier. He only got straightened out because he was making a fortune with the Teamsters. And I have an Uncle Albert that's a dinosaur with that family, and had more respect, well loved than. Well, they hated Nicky Black. So he goes to my Uncle Albert. Now this is my cousin Joey's here with me now.
Yeah.
Okay. He tells him, and this is my mother's brother, that I'm going to kill Butchie. That was my nickname. If he doesn't come over to, or your nephew, if he doesn't come over to our side.
Yeah.
So my uncle told him, he'll never come over. He's true blue. In other words, you're not. He jumped ship.
Yeah.
My nephew will never do that. So I went to see my uncle, and he told me it's true. He said he's going to do that. So be careful. He says, but remember this. Blood is thicker than water. In other words, I had nothing to worry. And I wasn't even thinking that way. But if he told me something, listen. Like maybe he knew Nicky was coming. But the next day, we made Nicky our #1 target. And once again, I don't know if there was divine intervention, even in such a terrible thing. This guy was looking for me. We made him a target. And the next day, we found him. And we were in a car that looked like an unmarked car. We had a siren in the window.
So he thought you were
and
a cop.
that's what we think, because he never turned his head. We pulled up alongside of him. You know, Greg had a rifle.
Yeah.
And he actually hit the wrong button, and all the bullets fell out. This was towards the end.
Towards the end with
he
the
was getting
dimension.
slow.
Yeah.
And I had the shotgun. So I reached out the window. I had a bandana on like we have to wear now.
Yeah.
So, you know, I had sunglasses on and a baseball hat. I reached out. I really got within 6 inches from his head. I do not know how come he never turned around, other than thinking, it's the law. They're going to arrest us.
Keeping his head straight.
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, the rest, I hit him, and it was pretty gory, but we drove off. And that was one that, even to this day, I don't regret.
Yeah.
You threatened to kill me. My mother had to hear that. My uncle had to hear that. My blood heard it, you know, and they were worried. Because this man was a dangerous man, too. So, But that was like the pretty much the turning point in the war for us, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there was one other quick story about Greg's daughter, Linda, that you were told where her daughter was young. She was a minor, right? 13, 14
years old,
and tell that whole story real quick, too.
Well, this one was earlier on. I was much younger. And this car service driver would come and pick her up every day. And this one day, I believe the brother didn't go to school that day. He was sick. So she was alone in the car. And instead of taking her to school, he takes her off to a park. And he tried to get her to succumb. But she didn't. But it was what the guy did was wrong. I didn't need Greg. If it was my sister or my daughter, I would have went and did the same thing we did. We gave him a beating.
Yeah.
We taught him a lesson. I mean, bones were broken. He spent 6 weeks in the hospital. But in that 6 weeks, I remember telling Greg, and little Linda knows this, I think he learned his lesson and let him stay out there. Maybe he'll tell other people. You know, I remember having these little type of conversations.
Yeah.
But it was brewing in them. And he just couldn't take it, Greg. He had to kill him. So now we spent weeks calling the car service. Finally, he shows up one day, and the plan went into effect. And Greg Jr. and me and Greg Jr. weren't supposed to be on it because it was personal, but we were.
Yeah.
We were not going to be involved, you know. And Greg Jr. Took care of that when it's public knowledge. He did his 33 years, so he's home now, thank God. Or I wouldn't talk about it too much.
Well, you know, there's so many great stories about the life in this book, and I just wanted to touch on those stories.
You show them the back too.
Take a look at the back of the book, and I want to talk to you more about your life now and what's going on there, man. I mean, we talked about it. It's a crazy world right now.
It is. You know, for me, first of all, I say it a lot. I've been blessed. When I came home, I had a family that supported me. Was able to get back on my feet, open the gym. I met my wife. We opened the restaurant together. And knock wood, it's been great. I say this a lot to let people know. You know, there's some guys that come out and turn their lives around and become crusaders and they want to help kids.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to come off as a hypocrite, you know, where I'm overdoing that. But so this is my take on it. You don't need that life to get respect and to make a good living. As a matter of fact, I get more respect now. And the money I'm making now, I can spend. I don't have to worry about the IRS. I don't have to pick up half of it to the boss. Exactly. I don't have to worry and look over my shoulder that somebody wants my business. You know, that's sort of what started this war. Not my personal business, but they wanted our business. You know, so I walk into a restaurant, they come over to me like I'm a wise guy. Yeah. And I'm not even trying to. Yeah. But, you know, I get to know the owners, and I'm a good tipper. There's always a good tipper, so that helps too. Sure. Because I worked for tips, and I'll never forget that. Sure. So that's all going great. I've got people now, because the book was so well received that Robert De Niro was working on The Irishman. Mm-hmm. And his security team now is composed of ex-cops and detectives that were on my case. So when he was looking for a consultant, they asked him if they know anybody, and every one of them said Larry.
Oh, that's
the guy. And you know, when I say that, it's almost a double-edged sword. It's nice that it's a compliment, but it's also like, okay, he could tell you how to dispose of weapons, how to shoot a guy, how to make a guy rest easy when he's getting, you know, there's a lot of things that aren't so nice. But anyway, I go meet him, and I took a consultant position, and then I got a small part in the movie.
Which we already reenacted that.
Yes, that's right. Yes, right, absolutely. And I kill Albert Anastasia in the barber seat. So now he brings me to Martin Scorsese's house. Who's a wonderful man and just was so regular and laughing, and he wanted to hear me talk. He was also learning the lingo and they had me film for different parts just so the person they had in mind could see exactly how, and they used a lot of I didn't go by the script, where I changed a few things that I would never say that. I would never say he's going to work for the prosecutor. You know, you say he's bad or something like that, you know? So then he sends me to Nick Pileggi. I'm going to show you the picture. This is Nick Pileggi, who wrote Goodfellas and Casino.
Oh, yeah.
And he is now under contract with my producer to write either a movie or a TV series.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they're leaning heavily towards a TV series.
TV series.
Because there's too much material, too many characters that can be developed, like a Sopranos. It can go on and on. And they're working on it as we speak. So that's awesome. That's all been great. And now what's happening to sort of wrap it up, how I'm still getting busier and busier, I have other people who have books and have written screenplays, and it's hard.
Yeah.
I got lucky to get in those doors.
Absolutely.
So I don't say no to anybody. If they have something and they send it to me, especially now that we have a producer that's very aggressive, and he's looking to, he's going to soon have his own platform.
Yeah.
Where we don't need to go to A&E or Netflix. He's going to do it himself. He's that well known, that much, you know, of a successful businessman. He can do it. He's been in the industry. So now people are coming, and like I said, I'm not going to say no. I help them every possible way I can, and some of them, Joe Coletto, I'm not going to keep calling my producer. Joe likes it, and he's putting them under Kelly as manager. And there's a reason for that, because he doesn't need to get 100 calls a day from these people.
Yeah.
So she gets them, filters them out, and helps them with the legalities. She is an MBA.
Awesome.
She was a vice president for a huge government contracting company that had Kennedy Space Center, TSA,
Awesome.
the Border Patrol. And my gym tied in with that for a few years, with the Border Patrol. So, yeah, everything is just,
that's great.
I'm blessed. I don't even think I deserve it.
That's awesome. Well, Larry, I want to ask you a couple of questions kind of related to what you just talked about, related to movies and TV. So, we talked about Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
And iconic actor. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Raging Bull. I love Raging Bull. Great movie.
He's got so many
great movies.
Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah. But in Godfather 2, where he learned to speak the Sicilian dialect and lived there, it was so cool. But lately, he's been acting a little crazy. Like, I want to ask you, is that an actor?
No, I'm going to get into that. But I want to tell you one thing. What you just said about all these different things he played for Cape Fear, and he told me the story. He told me the story himself. He went to a dentist and paid $5,000 for a dentist to ruin his teeth. Because he's in jail for 20 years, you're not going to get, and it's true. When I came out, my teeth were yellow, but I had them cleaned. I took good care of them.
How does a dentist even do that?
My teeth are still normal. I don't know. But after the movie, he paid $20,000 for the same dentist to get him fixed.
Oh my God!
So that's how serious.
That's crazy. And you know, in Raging Bull, he gained all that weight too. And
They filmed all the heavyweight parts for So to answer your question, it's an opinion, because we never really got into politics. There was one day where there was another TV show I was in. I played Joey Blasco, who was it was Perfect Murder, and it was a
great show.
Yeah, a true murder story out of Vegas.
Yeah,
and the guy worked for Joe Pesci's character, Tony Spilotto. I was a cop.
Yeah.
So I was talking to him about that, and I called the guy in the show. I said he's a mutt. So when I told De Niro, I couldn't curse, so I used the word mutt. I said, hey, he's a mutt.
Yeah.
He said, I called De Niro. I called Trump that. So then he went like this. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you voted for him. I told him, Mr. D, I lost my right to vote a long time ago, so don't worry about it. So now here's my opinion on that. He's very big into real estate in Manhattan. Trump is probably the biggest real estate person in Manhattan. And I think somewhere along the way, they had to butt heads, because I don't understand the hatred, especially in hindsight, with all the New York restaurants and hotels and everything falling apart because of this new way of thinking, you know? So I don't, it has to be personal to me.
That's a unique spin. That's a great spin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I would have never known that.
Yeah.
About his real estate. Because I knew he had some restaurants.
No, he has a son that's very big into real estate. You know, which, you know, is a smart, great business move. He, you know, the man's so successful, and his son gets into that, you know, but maybe they lost bids to Trump or something.
Yeah.
And again, that's my opinion, because I don't see I don't like Biden because that's my opinion. Again, because he's too far. Too many radical things.
Too far gone, and like,
you know, I could live with the middle.
Yeah.
And we're not there anymore. So, you know, like I say, everything's closing. Like,
I always speak positive, and one thing I always say positive is I always say I call the vice president Hot Lips Harris, because I think she's got some bedroom eyes and she looks good in those.
Well, I think she's proved herself.
Yeah, she's got some skills. I think she's an attractive lady. But I wanted to talk to you about movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
Ask you this question: what do you think is the most realistic mob movie that was ever made in Hollywood?
Well, there's a few. Let me say a few. I'd probably start with Goodfellas, because that was pretty
based on a true story.
And it was raw. It was real. There were guys in there. They weren't trying to be so polished like The Godfather.
Yeah.
You know, and believe it or not, The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And the reason is they took a lot of real things
Yeah.
that happened and did them on.
Did you ever have any dealings with the Cavalcanti, the Jersey people?
Probably through
A little bit,
the
yeah.
circles, because I was very big in the sports business.
Did you
so
find
we
it
did-
interesting that TV show focused on New Jersey rather than the bigger New York?
They said that, but a lot of the stories
Yeah.
came out of New York
Yeah.
things also, and they just put it in the show.
Yeah.
Like there was one that came right from my case where the agent, our corrupt agent, after we got Nicky Black, he banged the desk in the office. He said, "We're going to win this thing," and the
Yeah.
other agents heard it. That was in The Sopranos.
Yeah.
At the end, when Tony has hit somebody, the guy says the same thing. So they, and
That's
then
awesome.
there was,
From that.
I don't know what words are right to use, but they had a gay capo or an alternative lifestyle capo.
I was in the
in the-
car. Yeah. Heavier guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was some truth to that.
Yeah.
I don't know who it was, but there was a capo somewhere that had that alternative lifestyle.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so, yeah,
I'll tell you, I love
Bronx Tale.
Bronx Tale.
Bronx, yeah.
And the reason I love Bronx Tale was because it was a true story, somewhat, but it was based on Chaz Palminteri's actual life. He witnessed
Yes.
a killing when he was younger,
Yeah.
and it didn't so much focus on organized crime as much as his life
Well,
growing up around.
there was a little bit of that in my book, and not because of the movie, but it was real. My father was a fireman.
Yeah.
And there were times he said, "You're getting in a little too deep. Are you sure you want to do that?" I'm just in the gambling business. I'm making a good living. It's nice. It's easy. It's clean. Especially after I started out, it was a legitimate business.
Sure.
That brought me in with him, with Greg.
Sure.
So
Now,
there
let's
was a
talk
little bit
about-
of that.
Let's talk about that in terms of business side and business aspect and making money. People know like Shylock.
Mhm.
Like what kind of points were you giving like weekly and how that kind of worked?
I'll tell you here's how it starts. Here's how it all starts. Well, there was 3 basic racket businesses. The number business, like every state takes now.
Yeah.
You go to 7-Eleven. Okay, we had that before the state.
And just not to interrupt, but a lot of people here, because a lot of Canadians, they might not know the numbers are actually kind of evolved into lottery, and they were based on the numbers from tracks.
Yes, the last 3 digits of the handle.
Yeah.
The total cash handle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's totally random. Nobody could ever figure
Yeah.
those out. So that's the lowest level. Most of us break into that like I did. Then I got into the sports gambling business, which became very lucrative for me. Then, because people weren't paying, they have to borrow.
Yeah.
So they're really borrowing from me to pay me.
Yeah.
They're borrowing from Greg early on to pay me, but then I have my own money. So to answer your question, you can get anywhere from 1 point to 5 points. So if $1,000 loan is given to somebody, like say early on, I took 1,000 from Greg.
Yeah.
I would have to pay him $10 on that 1,000.
Yeah.
Per week.
Yeah.
I can charge anywhere up to $50, and they pay it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I typically charge 3 points.
Yeah.
$60, and they got to pay that forever until they give you the 1,000 back. And some of them, they just rather pay the 60 than hand you
Keep paying.
$1,000. So it goes on for years.
Yeah.
I built up. I had 700,000 on the street at one point. Wow. Earning a point and a half. Because what happens is you become a Shylock to Shylocks. Like Greg had 30 Shylocks in there.
Yeah.
So he was getting a point from them. They were getting 3, 4, 5 points. So now I had Shylocks under me as time went on, and I would get a point from them. They would get 3 points. So it's really a ton. You can make a ton of money in it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you something. I don't know how many dirty words I'm allowed to use.
Oh, yeah.
But I is, one time I was having trouble in the Shylock business because I was a little soft on people.
Yeah.
I didn't, if they missed 1 week, all right, I'll see you next week. And Greg told me one time, he looked me in the eyes, and said, "You know why I'm a successful Shylock? Because I'm a scumbag.
Yeah.
You can't miss 1 week.
Yeah.
You miss 1 week, I'm coming to your house."
Would you guys ever do it where if they mixed a week, they gave you something of greater value?
Not really. I just had them catch up. I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't do what the IRS does.
Yeah.
Yeah. You missed 30 last week. You owe me 60 this week.
Yeah.
But there were times like if you did the guy gave him a break, they come in and try to take a little care of you some way with
Sure.
a bottle of Dom Perignon. One guy gave $2,000 to go to Atlantic City.
Yeah.
He came home that night with $7,000. He gave me my two back, and he wanted to give me another $1,000. No, thank you. I said, give me my 120.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want it to turn around. I remember I gave you the
Yeah,
extra.
exactly. He's not going to pay.
And
yeah.
you know what else? He came back the next week for money.
Yeah.
I said, what'd you do? He says, Laugh, I got to have money from you. If I don't know that I got a juice payment or a big payment, he says, I get lazy.
Yeah.
I need to hustle. So
Yeah.
give me 2,000, please.
Yeah.
He just needed to have it, So he comes once a week. It's crazy. But yeah, the Shylock business, Greg was probably the top 5 Shylocks in the whole.
Yeah, that's huge.
Top
Yeah.
5 easy.
Yeah,
All the families I'm talking.
And kind of to wrap up with the organized crime mob stuff, the Colombo family. A lot of people may know, going back to the original Godfather movie, that Joe Colombo was the guy that was part of that league that was protesting the movie. And I'll tell you, my own personal family, like my grandfather, they were from Sicily. They didn't like that movie. They were older, They're dead now, they'd be 100 years old.
Yeah.
But they hated that movie, and it's so weird how it's changed. There was always something that you never talk about, and now it's podcast. Isn't it crazy how the world's changed?
But I'll tell you what, they had to get permission from New York to make that movie.
To make the movie,
And if you look at, they don't use the word mafia once.
Yeah, and I haven't in this interview because that's a word that I just never use.
Well, right.
Yeah, personally, and only because like my mother, my grandfather, they never wanted to use that word. So I always say mob or whatever.
Yeah, mob, and then amongst us, we said either Cosa Nostra or in the English our thing, it's our thing.
Yeah.
This thing of ours, we would call it, like Greg, if he's teaching me, he would say this thing.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, I'd say Cosa Nostra.
Yeah.
No, no drugs.
Yeah.
Even though going back to the rules, that was a rule that was broken.
That's interesting to talk about too, because there's an organization that's out of Italy now, and Dretta, or I don't know how they pronounce it, but they're big into drugs now.
No, yeah, who is that? There's a TV show about it.
Dretta. Yeah, there was a guy that I was just reading the story this morning. There was an interview. It popped up on Google.
I know who you're talking about. It's not that. It's not the Explorer was the Mexican one.
They had Gomorrah.
Gomorrah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, you don't mean that.
Yeah, this is similar.
Okay,
but it's spelled differently. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure. But in Italian organized crime, Cosa Nostra, there were obviously people that were involved in drugs, but there was a rule you weren't supposed to. You wanted to talk about that?
Well, yeah, it becomes do as I say, not as I do. They're telling you not to. Hypocrites that they are, they're opening the drawer and taking payments from drug dealers, then getting into themselves. That was our crew's downfall.
Yeah.
And, it's all going to come out. It's pretty much public knowledge. Greg Jr. had a great idea back in the day to tax drug dealers.
Yeah, great idea.
If you're out in the streets selling drugs, you're bringing some to the family.
Oh, yeah.
And that was gray area.
Sure, even worse
You're not out there doing. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're not out there doing it, but we're the tough guys. We're running the streets. You're paying.
Yeah.
But the greed takes over.
Yeah.
If too many guys aren't paying, they get beaten. Then they get killed. Then you want now supply it, because now you're going to make 5 times. You were making $50,000 a week. Now you're going to make $250 a week.
Sure.
We became like Scarface. Instead of a social club that you picture the movie Scarface. That club looked more like that. And then some guys start using it, and it sort of really caused problems. And Greg Jr. is going to get to tell his story someday, and it's interesting.
I was going to say even worse than taxing the drug dealers. The show that you and I were on with Angelo DeCipio, I was on there with George Anastasia. He had done a book called Gotti's Rules.
Yes.
And I managed Phil Baroni. Still managed, but doesn't do as much anymore. And I knew his family. I knew his dad really well.
Right.
And his father was a Gold Star detective. And I'm not saying anything out of school, because this is stuff that his father was in the Gotti trial.
Right.
He had
Common knowledge.
This is common knowledge
Right.
on it. His father actually used to rob drug dealers using his badge.
Yeah.
He did that a lot with John Elite. They used to.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money robbing drug dealers.
Yep. We had guys around us doing that.
Yeah.
And the thing was, what are they going to do? Go to the cops?
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's the same thing with the taxing them, but that's the rule. Obviously, what we talked about earlier, sleeping with. I wasn't the only one. There was shit going on. You know, Sammy once told me that John Gotti was with Vanilla Bella Croce's daughter. And, you know, he was married, so that was taboo. Then, you know, Omerta, of course, guys that were talking, you know, like the minute they get arrested. You know, so all these rules, and the family comes first. You're never supposed to go against the boss. I'll go back to John. He goes and kills the boss. There was no approval there. Then Vicarina decides he wants to take over the family. There was no approval there. He just decided to do it. Bodies start turning up. The split happens. Guys get paranoid, and then it's a shootout, and it just erupted. So all these rules that were there to keep all those things from happening, from falling apart, were being broken. Yeah. And it's not the same. It fell apart. Yeah. And, you know, and it's
really just about money, you know, and on that regard, you know, one of the things that Baroni was into, and another guy knew long ago, was chop shops, and they used to steal cars. And have people steal cars. Yep. They didn't just steal cars. What Baroni used to do is insurance jobs, like, you know, you put your car in Bridgeport, somebody takes it, you know. So there's so many ways to make money, you know, inside jobs. Inside jobs with hijacking, and I can talk about, you know, with the wine business, you know, stuff like that. Anything to make money. Right. Ultimately,
well, one of the things with the cars back in the 70s, a little before me, but I heard about it. I was on the tail end of it. They would steal Lincoln Continentals, the big town cars, okay, and change the number, the VIN number, ship them to Saudi Arabia. Yeah, so the Arabian sheiks and oil magnates, they would pay for those, like we paid for Mercedes Benz back then. They would pay $150,000 for a Lincoln.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they would, and they were putting them in those big cargo containers, 5, 6, 7 at a time, and millions coming back. And one of the guys, I won't mention his name, he's a friend, he's out there doing great, wound up probably one of the richest car dealers in the country. Yeah. You know, and he got his start involved in that. So.
Yeah, so so many different ways, but ultimately, you know, I think any type of organized crime, whether even you talk about Yakuza and some of those Yakuza, some of the stuff that's going on, you guys being Hannibal TV, you know, Baroni's told some of the stories when he was on with me about throwing fights. The guys that were throwing fights, they come into the locker room before your fight, and they say, you're fighting Kazushi Sakuraba, and we're going to pay you this much, you know, if you win, and you're going to pay me this much if you lose. So organized crime's always been about money. Then you could bet on the guy that you know is going to win.
Always trying to corrupt sports, always trying to corrupt fights. Yeah.
But let's face it, everybody's about money. You know, our society is all about money.
Yeah. Well, what we say, just, you know, talking a little bit before, there's a certain percentage of every walk of life that is corrupt.
Absolutely.
Be it races, be it organizations, be it biker clubs, whatever it is, there's...
And cops.
Whatever.
You know, most cops are good, but there's a lot of cops that are on the take, you know.
Well, as a matter of fact, that's a great segue from my buddy Tommy, one of those security guys, Tommy Days, cop that I grew up with. They're working on some stuff with me and him because it's like angels with dirty faces. Yeah. He was supposed to be the bad kid. I was supposed to, you know, be a fireman like my father. And he spearheaded the mob cop investigation. The 2 bad cops in New York that were close to the family. He busted them. And now they're doing a series. Joe Coletto, my producer, is working on that also. So I should have a role in that. Yeah. If you're looking, if you're watching, Joe, I better have a role in that.
Yeah. That's you could play a cop convincingly.
Well, I played it. Did you see when I played the corrupt cop behind the bar?
No,
I'm going to send you that. I got phenomenal reviews on it. But the funny thing is, afterwards, they said, you stole the show because they told me to be sarcastic, be yourself. So it's really easy playing a corrupt cop. Yeah. You know, I know how to talk to a cop. Yeah. But afterwards, I told them, I said, do me a favor. Don't sign me up for Hamlet yet. Yeah. You know, because they were really anything corrupt, a Wall Street guy, insurance, probably, you know, a detective that's a little, you know, street smart. Yeah. So there's little things I'll do, but we'll see. I was going to be in a movie with Michael Madsen until this happened.
Yeah, you were telling me.
Yeah, and it's called Paper Chase. I hope that's right. Kelly will remember because she was managing me in it. I'll ask her before we go. And he was a detective. and I was going to be not a main, but one of the bad guys on the yacht
Yeah.
that he comes to see. So I don't know how much of a role it would have been, but you know, it was by Mike Caddos. He's
Yeah.
also a very good friend. He's a
Awesome.
huge producer. So we'll see. Let's hope it keeps going up.
Yeah.
So you want to go?
So what I'd like to do is talk to you and the missus, talk to you and your beautiful wife and manager. What I'll do is I'll stop it, and then we can. And this is Larry's, once again, Larry's gorgeous wife and manager, Kelly. And she's won a number of beauty pageants. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, they were all done for charity. I was a little older to start, so it was very different from being young. It's a little hard to go out on stage in a two-piece bathing suit when you're over 50.
Well, you look amazing. And, let me ask you this. What's next for you?
Oh, we have so many things coming up and happening. Yeah, I don't know. It's endless. We keep reinventing and going on to new things.
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
I'm going to throw something in. She's a little modest. The first beauty pageant she got into was we were approached by David Siegel and his wife.
Mhm.
What was her name?
Jackie.
Jackie Siegel. I slipped my mind. And she was doing a pageant, and Kelly didn't know at the time it was from 21 up, and she's over 50 at the time.
I was over 55.
Yes. Okay, that's true. She finished in the top 5. So she came back and over 50 she won. That was an easy one. So yeah. But for all those 21-year-olds, it was something special.
You
So,
put a lot of those 20-year-olds to show.
Probably
So,
a little bit
well,
more
don't
wisdom.
forget now, I'm the personal trainer.
Yeah.
I take some credit. And she came in to learn kickboxing. I wrapped her up, and
Well, speaking of that, we're heading over to the gym now.
Yeah.
I'll be there. I'll be there.
All right.
We'll see you at the gym.
All
Okay,
right.
sounds good. All right. Well, I told you about the dojo. Here it is.
Awesome.
We've had classes here. Years ago, when I had a different gym, we had a cage, a professional ring. This is where we do our personal training. I am still a personal trainer.
Awesome. Yeah, you're in fantastic shape, man. I'll tell you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We work hard at it. We do a lot of working out. And I'll take you to the back room. This is where our machines are, as you can see, and our cardio equipment.
This is awesome.
Thanks. And then back here, take a look at the pit. This is the hardcore, where you got all your heavy weights, your free weights, your heavy duty racks.
Dumbbell rack.
Yeah, everything you need. And if you go all the way to the back,
You got Smith machines. Yeah. And this bench press is awesome. You don't
Yeah,
have
it's
to
the plate loaders.
That plate loader bench is.
and back here, I want to show them the guard. And watch your steps. When we used to do boot camps and martial arts outside before the hurricane, it wiped us out a little bit. We had a roof here with heavy bags, and as you can see, the tires in the back, and the cement slab used to be wood. So we can't do any grappling and stuff like that there, but working out in the backyard is really...
So cool. It's right on the water, too.
Yep.
Oh, man. This is
And you
great.
see next door, after the workout, we're going to go
I
there
need
now.
a drink. I need a drink
We're
right
going to go
now.
have a beer with Harry at H&D Roadhouse.
Let's go.
All right. Good deal. Thanks for looking at the gym.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.